Hey guys, happy Friday. I'm here today to discuss our canceled or postponed wedding due to the pandemic and why we decided to elope in 2020 instead of waiting to do everything in 2021. So I want this to just be like a kind of casual chat with you guys, but instead of holding the camera, I have my tripod up. I didn't do the studio lights, so I'm using natural lighting, so that might change as we talk. I wanted this to just be kind of casual and not a super planned out video like I usually do. So I've got my bride shirt on. Let's talk about the process of how we got to where we are now, where we're already married, even though our wedding isn't going to be until 2021. So first up, we need to talk about what's happened this year, right? So in February, Brittany and I went on my bachelorette party at Universal in Florida. We had our shirts, we had a great time. There's a whole playlist here if you want to join along those adventures. While we were in Florida, coronavirus news had started circulating. It was already around. I know we were hand sanitizing like crazy while we were in the parks, even though it was February and it really hadn't come to the US that much yet. It was really just in Washington at the time. Brittany and I were being cautious even then, just being extra careful because it's also flu season. So we were hand sanitizing like crazy while we were there, and the idea was already in our minds that this was a thing, but we had no idea what was about to transpire in the months to come, or that the theme parks were going to shut down 2 weeks later. It's just wild to think about. At the bachelorette party, coronavirus and COVID took over in March. In March, I was like, you know what, we might be good by June. Like, let's just keep going. Weddings in June. We'll probably be fine to travel by then, right? And then at the end of March, everything started shutting down. As most of you know, I live in Houston. Houston shut down end of March. I was furloughed end of March. Mike has been able to work from home the whole time because that's what he does normally. He works from home, but I was furloughed. As April rolled around, Brittany was furloughed. Other members that were coming to our wedding were either furloughed or working from home on lockdown. And not to put our parents on blast, but all four of our parents are above the age of 65, so they're all in the at-risk category. So even before we started realizing that this was something that was going to affect everyone, even when it was just like the at-risk, started in April having the discussion of maybe this is not the best time to have everyone traveling to Colorado for a wedding. Just having that initial discussion of, okay, what are we going to do if we can't travel for this wedding in June? And I started just feeling like, you know what, all of this happening, all of this going on, I just don't think we want the stress. I think we should go ahead and get ahead of it and postpone 2021. Before everyone else has the same idea, let's go ahead and contact the venue and our vendors and see if they're able to move it. So we contacted the venue first just to make sure, because I'd heard from our vendors that our wedding location, that this was the last year they were doing weddings. So I had a concern that if we postponed, that we might not be able to have our venue again next year. And thankfully she got back to me right away, let me know that yes, absolutely we could move it to 2021. She totally understood everything that was going on and that we would be fine to have our small wedding as planned. If you don't know, our eventual wedding is only going to have 13 people, including ourselves. So it's very small. The venue was totally fine with making that happen for 2021. So that was the best news. That's what I needed to hear. And at that point, I started contacting all our other vendors, which again, very small wedding. So basically the only vendors we have are the venue, we have a photographer, we have a hair and makeup duo, we have a cake baker, we have a florist, and we have a rental company that we're renting some basic items for the venue. But I reached out to all of them. All of them got back with me that yes, they could do that date, which was going to be the exact same date just a year later. They said yes. We said, let's do it. We made the decision. We were going for it. We were just going to postpone a year to the exact date. I had already sent out invites. I literally sent invites like 2 weeks before all this went down. So I created a resave the date little graphic online and just sent it to everybody on Facebook. They all knew it was coming pretty much at that point. So they have a resave the date. I'm not gonna send new invitations. I already spent the money. It already sent. Everyone can just check the website that we have and find out details through that. So with that, we thought we were done. We thought we were set. We were good to go. A year from our planned wedding date, we were going to be married and all was going to be well. And then we had a little curveball thrown at us when I think it was 3 weeks later. It was a good chunk of time later. Our photographer emailed me and I got the email right before bed. Literally laying in bed, about to fall asleep, and I got the email from our photographer saying, oh my gosh, I screwed up. I am so sorry, but I didn't check all of my calendars and I am actually already booked for that date. Ugh. My heart. I had a little mini meltdown. I had been totally fine up until that point. You know, there was a little sadness in me that we were gonna lose our original wedding date, and definitely was sad about having to wait another year, but you know, it is what it is. It's a pandemic, you can't control it. Gonna roll with it. And then I got that email and I just started sobbing. Like Mike was already like half asleep and I'm just like sobbing, and he's like, it's okay, or we'll figure it out, we'll find another photographer. I'm like, I don't want another photographer, I love her. Because we had already done our engagement pictures with her and they were beautiful. You can see them in one of the videos in this playlist, and I just loved her already. I am especially picky when it comes to photography. To me, that is the item that you save from the wedding forever, right? Aside from your marriage, the item that you have forever from the wedding, that's the pictures, and that's the memories that you're gonna save forever are the pictures, right? And as someone who dabbled in photography, I wouldn't call myself a photographer, but I did shoot some weddings as a second photographer for a friend, so I'm somewhat decent as a photographer. By no means professional, but a pretty solid amateur photographer. So I have a very certain look that I like in my photos and a very specific way that I like my photographers to work with us. And she fit that perfectly. I just had full confidence in her. Our engagement pictures were perfect. I really did not want to have to try to find another photographer. That's like a nightmare for me. I was like, I can find a new hair person, I can find a new cake person. I really don't want to have to find a new florist because she was perfect, but I could find another florist if we need to. From the start, I had said, as long as we can get the venue and the photographer back for a year from now, I'm good. That put a whole kink in our plans. You know, I eventually fell asleep. The next day I woke up and Mike and I went right back into discussing like, what are we gonna do about this? Mike was suggesting we, you know, just change the wedding date, just change to a different date, and I was being very stubborn about not wanting to lose our date. If you don't know this about me, fun fact, I have a very strange thing about numbers. I hate odd numbers. I hate them. It is what it is. Like, Brittany and my other friends make fun of me for this, but I have a strange thing about numbers. I don't like odd numbers. And so long story short, I'm picky about numbers. Because we were supposed to be getting married on the 12th, the options the day before or the day after were the 11th or the 13th, and neither one of those were going to fly for me. I was already compromising on the 21, it being 6/12/21. I was compromising on that because I'm like, it's a 1-2 and then the 2-1, it works. I was explaining it to myself. I was convincing myself that the 21 was going to be okay. But the 6/11/21 or 6/13/21 was not flying for me, and I know that's just a weird quirk about myself. And finally Mike was like, well, okay, just throwing this out here, what if we get legally married on 6/12/20 as we planned? We could do a courthouse wedding, just legally get married, and then that's our anniversary date. That's locked in. We're officially husband and wife on 6/12/20, and then next year we have the ceremony, have everything else that we planned, then the date doesn't matter because we're already married. And I was like, now this I might be able to get behind. There was definitely a part of me that was very sad about this idea because I knew that Brittany really wanted to be there when we got married. Initially, when we came up with this idea, we were thinking, well, maybe by then it'll be safe for them to travel, and maybe Brittany and Jordan can come to Texas. We can fly them out to Texas. They can be there for the elopement as well. Obviously, that didn't pan out because coronavirus did not give that an opportunity. So that was my one hang up about it. It seemed like the only way to really get around this, where I could still keep the photographer, keep the venue, keep our wedding date, everything intact, and have everything we wanted just a little different than we planned. So in that moment, that's what we decided to do. I went ahead and contacted our photographer to see what dates she was available. We picked a date from what she had. Knew at that moment we would be legally married on 6/12/20, our initial planned wedding date, and that this other ceremony will still be very special. I'll get to that. It won't be our anniversary date. 6/12/20 will always be our anniversary date, and this other one will just be the day we celebrated it. Once I got the photographer locked back down, we switched the dates with the venue again. I reached out to everyone else, and everyone except for hair and makeup were good to go right away. Hair and makeup at first told me they were booked, then got back with me later and said they could do it. It's been official now for a few months, so I think we're good. Everyone is good. We have all our original vendors for this new date. It's gonna go forward as planned, fingers crossed, in 2020. Next up, came planning the 6/12/20 Texas wedding. The first kink in this plan was when I went online to look up marriage licenses in Texas, because everything we knew about marriage licenses had been for Colorado because we were preparing for the Colorado wedding. The catch was that because Houston shut down, even though the state had reopened, the city offices, the county offices had not reopened. The clerk of courts who issue the marriage licenses, they were all shut down. We assumed that they would probably open up in time. Our backup plan was Galveston was doing marriage licenses, so worst case scenario, we could have eloped to Galveston, gotten our marriage license, and then gone back and gotten married wherever. I got very, 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 very lucky here. This was incredible luck, where one day I checked the website and I hadn't seen any news about it. I'd just been every once in a while checking their website to see if they'd reopened. I must have checked the website very soon after they reopened, and basically they had set up an online reservation system. You had to have a reservation in order to come in to do your marriage license. They weren't open yet. They were getting ready to open the following week, and I was able to get us an appointment for, I think it was like May 21st that we went and did it. When I checked back like a week later, they were booked through July and no longer taking reservations. I don't know what made me look at the website when I did, but thank goodness I did, because we were able to get the marriage license and move forward, because I'm sure there were a lot of people in Houston that were not able to get marriage licenses who wanted them, because they were only doing one couple at a time every half hour. With the millions of people that live in Houston, you have to imagine how many different weddings had gotten postponed and like people were waiting to get marriage licenses. Oh my goodness, we lucked out. You had to have proof of your appointment to get in the building. You had to wear a mask. When we got in, we proved our appointment. They took our temperature. They asked us some questions like, have you traveled the last 14 days? Have you been around anyone who had COVID in the past 14 days? Those kind of questions. Once we passed those questions, we went through the normal security with the metal detectors and everything to get into the courthouse. We took an elevator where only 2 people were allowed in the elevator at a time. Went up to the floor. Once we got there, they asked us the same travel questions. They took our temperature again. They took our information. They took our IDs. And then they took us into a room where it was just us and the one clerk. She was behind plexiglass, completely protected from us, and the only thing we had to touch when we were in there was the pad to sign our names. They had hand sanitizer right there for after you did it. Very well planned out. Took maybe 15 minutes while we were there. Had our marriage license and brought it home. Once I found out about the marriage licenses, decided to fill out a form online to request an appointment for a courthouse wedding in Houston. The next day, I got an email back from the courthouse saying, due to COVID-19, we are not scheduling any weddings in May. And obviously we're getting married in June, but she was saying we're not scheduling anything this month. Like, you're gonna have to try again in June. So I asked her, with everything starting to reopen, what are the odds that you think that they'll be ceremonies in June? And she's like, it's really too hard for me to say. Like, try to call us in June and we'll see what's happening. And for me, that was way too wishy-washy. I can't wait until 12 days before the wedding or 11 days before the wedding to call and hope I can get an appointment. So at this point, I started looking up officiants because I knew people were still getting married somehow, and I figured officiants could easily do elopements with the guidelines currently in place. Started doing some research around Houston and found that one of the very popular things that was happening because of COVID-19 was drive-up weddings. They were offering elopements as well. The elopements were running about $125 to $175 depending on your officiant, and that involved actually having a ceremony at a nice location, like at an open park or at a gazebo or in your backyard if you wanted it, in a little elopement ceremony. Some of them allowed a few guests, but staying within the 10 or under guidelines. For us, we didn't really want to go that route because, one, it would be a stranger that would be marrying us, so that doesn't really mean anything to us, and we wanted to save our vows and our ring exchange for our actual wedding in 2021. So the vows we would have done for this ceremony would have just been the standard for better or for worse type of vows, and that's not what we're planning to do in 2021, so we really didn't want to do that in 2020 either. But the drive-up wedding, they were offering that for like $50 to $75. You could have a drive-up wedding, and in that case, you just meet up with the officiant. They ask you the very few legal questions that they have to ask you in order to determine that you both actually want to get married, and then they sign the document, they send in the document for you, and you are married. That sounded perfect for us because it saved all the vow exchange, the ring exchange, everything emotional about the wedding. That saved that for 2021 for when we have the wedding with our actual guests there. This was just a way to get legally married, to be husband and wife, to have this as our anniversary and start the process of being married without having to sacrifice the emotional aspect of our future wedding. So that sounded perfect for us. Our officiant ended up being $50. We drove out to where she lives. She asked us the very simple questions that we needed to do. You both agree? Good. You may kiss your bride, you're married. It ended up being perfect. It's a hilarious story to tell that we got married at a drive-up wedding. And honestly, I don't know that there's any better way to do it in 2020 in the middle of a pandemic than get married with just the couple and an officiant, distanced, wearing t-shirts that say bride and groom. I mean, is there anything more 2020 than that? I don't know. So it ended up being the best option for us. We also decided to exchange silicone rings to wear for the next year. We did want to have wedding bands on. I have, I think, 5 different colors of silicone bands, but this is the one I'm wearing like full time. And then Mike has a gray silicone band. And then next year at the full wedding, we will exchange our actual bands because we have them. We just decided to save them. Since our honeymoon, our real honeymoon, the full thing we have planned wasn't going to happen anyway because we can't travel out of the country, and our honeymoon was supposed to be out of the country. We decided to do a little mini moon down in Corpus Christi because at the time it was an incredibly safe place to go. They had only had 300 cases from March through early June. We felt safe going down there. We knew a lot of the businesses were taking it seriously, and we knew we could social distance by renting a condo from VRBO, and the realty company that we were renting from through VRBO had a whole policy where you could cancel within 72 hours. So if anything happened, we knew we could cancel. And they also had like a whole thing on their website about all the extra measures they were taking to clean. We felt confident with that, and we knew we could go down to Padre Island and have plenty of beach all to ourselves and still social distance and enjoy honeymoons. That's what we decided to do to make it a little more special than just the drive-up wedding. We did take a little mini moon. Next year, after the full wedding, we will take a full honeymoon as long as we are able to. So fingers crossed there's a vaccine or some major improvement before next June, because Lord help me. I really want to have our Colorado wedding, and I really want to go on our honeymoon that we had planned. So fingers crossed. Speaking of the honeymoon, the only thing we actually had planned at the time that we'd already purchased were plane tickets. We'd purchased our plane tickets to the wedding, to the honeymoon, and back home. We had those already when everything started going down, but we hadn't booked hotels or any experiences yet. That all worked out because United just gave us a refund with everything happening. And as far as the wedding goes, I had purchased favors that say 6/12/20 on them, but hey, that's our actual wedding date, so I'll still give them out and everyone can celebrate our original wedding date with us. Obviously, I had sent out the invitations, so again, that's gonna stay the same. I'm not gonna spend the money on new invitations, especially not for 11 people who I can all communicate with online. Otherwise, everything else is okay for the wedding. My wedding dress is still hanging in the purple room over here, just waiting for the next year. I've got another year to try to hit my goal weights so that I look fantastic in that wedding dress, which I did when I tried it on. It looked fantastic when I picked it up, but I have gained that Corona 5. I need to lose the Corona 5 plus a few more pounds that I wanted to lose before all this went down. So yeah, now we have a year, fingers crossed. Everything is back to normal a year from now. So that's my update on the wedding and our planning. This might be the last video about it because everything's pretty much done at this point. I just have to wait another year. It was a whirlwind few months. I'm glad we did it the way we did it. We had so much fun, memories to keep forever. A really funny story that's the best you can come out of all of this, right? We have a second wedding and a second honeymoon to look forward to next year. So that's it for me today. I will link to my videos from our elopement. If you haven't already seen them, check them out. I hope you guys enjoyed a little story time regarding our COVID-19 pandemic wedding and what we have planned for 2021. And I will see you guys again very soon. Bye.